I'm Dave Kaiser from CCX Media. Thanks for joining us for this special information program about something new to the Northwest suburbs. 3 of those suburbs. We're talking about the West Metro Peer Support Team. And to talk more about it, learn a little bit more, I have 3 very special guests joining me in studio. Captain John Kaczmarek from the Robbinsdale Police Department, welcome.
Thank you.
Officer Britni Austin from the New Hope Police Department, welcome to you.
Thank you.
And Sergeant Brandon Dorr from the Crystal Police Department. Thanks all for joining us here today. So West Metro Peer Support Team, let's find out a little bit more. John, what's the definition and purpose of the Peer Support Team?
Well, as you know, we're all first responders here, and what we've learned over the course of years of working as a first responder is that we experience stress. And those stresses affect us physically, emotionally, cognitively at times. And part of our purpose here in building a peer support team was to fight that, to build resilience in the long term so we can be healthy employees for each city that we represent, for the communities that we serve. Peer support team to the 3 of us is a group of individuals that have experience, life experience, especially in law enforcement as well as in their own life. And they work with one another that also have those same experiences, and we communicate and we work together to hash out problems that we're going through and to provide hope and resiliency moving forward in the future.
We'll break down the details a little bit further in a second. Let's talk a little bit more about the right timing. Brittany, why is this the right time, and does this exist in other places throughout the metro and the country?
Yes, so we'll start with the right time. Now more than ever, first responders, especially law enforcement, are under a tremendous amount of stress. Everybody's seen TV, they've seen the news over the last couple of years. Cops are under fire, it's been termed the war on cops, and aside from just the stress at work, we tend to bring that home. And so part of the peer support team is to combat that. They do exist elsewhere. I know here in the metro, there's a consortium team between Minnetonka, St. Louis Park, Hopkins, Edina, Eden Prairie. There's also, Anoka County has a team in and of themselves. And then I believe Washington County also has them. There are different peer support teams throughout the country as well, and they also exist in Canada.
Very good. Let's talk some statistics, find out a little bit more behind the need here. Brandon, take us through a little bit about some stats we see that support the need.
Yeah, so law enforcement is very stressful on the mind, and it's very stressful on the emotions. One of the biggest things that we learn about and that we hear is that almost every year there's more officer suicides than there are line of duty deaths, especially felonious deaths. So anywhere from, over the past 4 years, we're looking at anywhere from 170 to approximately over 200 suicides of officers per year. Compared to felonious deaths, you're looking at 50, maybe 75. So we're looking at anywhere from triple to even more of suicides versus officers being shot in the line of duty. Mm-hmm. We're also looking at officers, what they face, and the mentality up until very recently has been, you go to work, you deal with it, and then you go home. Mm-hmm. And officers are being hurt at higher rates. They're being shot at higher rates. Just last year, the estimated 346 officers in this country were shot. 63 were killed by gunfire. And that's led to a lot of PTSD claims. And that's been a very big conversation piece recently, especially with what happened during the riots and in Minneapolis. 10, 15 years ago, you'd be looking at approximately a dozen PTSD claims by police officers. Last year there was over 300. When we talk about resilience, we talk about having somebody to talk to, having someone to maybe point someone and guide in a direction where we can get help, not just say, I just deal with it. Mm-hmm. And to get over these and to work through these. And an average police officer, an average person, can have 1 to 2 critical incidents experiences in their entire lifetime. On average, a police officer will have 3 critical incident experiences every 6 months that they're a police officer. Now in Minnesota, to get our full pension, we have to work until we're 55 and have a minimum of 30 years. So throughout an entire career of a police officer, you're looking at over 180 critical incidents that an officer will experience. Obviously, if you're in rural areas, it might be less, and if you're in urban areas, it might be more. We work in suburbs where there's a lot of density here. We do see a lot of crimes, things like homicides, decomposing bodies, traffic accidents, fatalities, child abuse, things like that. Those are not uncommon for us to see, and we do have to deal with them on a very regular basis. So that's why we're here.
Very good. Lots of background information there. John, let's talk a little bit more about the steps. Something like this just doesn't come to be. There's steps to make it happen. Take us back. What were the steps to get this together?
Sure. So kind of the steps, we started this last year in 2021, but of course, our department heads, our chiefs of police had conversations about what can we do between the 3 agencies to make things better, to show empowerment between all the officers, clerical staff, evidence techs, all that we can move forward in a positive way, or at least ensure that happens. And that goes down to the line officers, the detectives, the sergeants, the administration like myself, captains. We all had an idea that, in a sense, we wanted to do something better. And a peer support team was one of those things that we brought up. And like Sergeant Dorr said, to bring that endurance for the future and longevity of our careers, as well as the longevity of the service we provide the communities that we serve. Our 3 agencies, we work a lot together. We see each other on a normal basis because of our size and proximity to one another. So that was kind of the thought process of having the Tri-City, the 3 cities get together and do this and tackle this as one. And that's what we're starting here. So some of the steps we've taken other than conversations is we've developed or identified 3 coordinators, one from each agency, that being the 3 of us, and started having that open communication of what is our line of sight with this and this project. So obviously we've been to peer support training. We've had several meetings discussing how we want to lay this out, how we want to present this to each one of our departments, how we're going to be doing it at individual department meetings in the near future, so we have the same message broadcasted to all officers from each agency. And this includes, like I said, civilian staff, not just officers, because civilian staff also, they endure reading reports, listening to phone calls, evidentiary stuff, and it has an effect on them just like it does those that actually are in the field face-to-face with it. So those are some of the steps we've taken to move forward.
Britni, John mentioned training. Let's talk a little training. What have you been through to bring you to this point?
Yes, so specifically the 3 individuals that we have at New Hope actually did an online course prior to the regulations being set in stone. So we have a full online course for peer support, and on top of that, our entire team has been trained to the Department of Public Safety and Minnesota Post Board standards. That includes, within a 1-year period, you have to have 30 hours of training. In that 30 hours, 16 of it has to be in person. So you're physically going to get together with other peer support members, doing different scenarios, learning how to talk through the different ways that we should be available to other people. And then we will do, quarterly meetings and other trainings as they come up throughout the years.
Brandon, highlight some of the involvement then. We've talked a little bit about who's involved, the 3 of you obviously, but again, how far does it reach, and why is that important to reach to so many of the people within the departments?
Because everybody has to deal with it. Everybody's dealing with it. Like Captain Kaczmarek said, it stems from captains and lieutenants to civilians who have to enter the evidence and see all the photos that we have to take. We work as a team within our departments and with each other, and it includes everybody. So our civilian staff, we do have a civilian peer support group or team member, and they have to see just as much as we do. Might not be in person, but they have to see and read everything about it. It's as far as officers, it's patrol officers, it's sergeants, it's captains, it's everybody, because we all have to deal with it, and everybody has to deal with it a little differently. There's different types of the stress that the the chiefs have to deal with a lot of the backlash of anything that's not good. They have to deal with that. The officers have to deal with the things that are happening on the road, and then everything in between. So we want it to be all-encompassing within our departments and to try to help out everybody as equally as possible.
Very good. Few final questions as we wrap this up and again give you more information about the peer support team. How about tangible ways, Britni? What beyond what we've already said are some tangible ways that this will get into action very soon?
Yes, so we plan on being available for any agency within our peer support team for things like debriefings. So following a critical incident, after the couple of days have passed, getting together and processing. It's not like a tactical debrief, but it's more of a what things did you experience physically, mentally, emotionally, and get through those processes. We also would be available for defusings, which is an immediate, like before you go home that night, we're going to talk about these are the things that can happen, and so that you can be better prepared for that. Outside of that, we're available for personal things. If someone's dealing with chemical dependency, if there's a loss or death in the family, we can help that family, set up funeral arrangements and be there for them. Certain GoFundMe, things like that. And just kind of a day-to-day, if you're dealing with stress at home, you get to work and you're dealing with stress at work and you just need to talk to somebody, pick up the phone and we will be available for you.
Brandon, short, long-term goals as we look further down the road. What is the hope? What is the dream behind this group?
Well, the short-term goal is to get rid of the stigma of mental health in law enforcement. It's been ignored, just flat out. The mentality has always been you show up, you do your job, you deal with whatever you have to deal with, you go home and you do the same thing the next day. That's not how humans work. We're human and we need to work through these things. We need to be able to make sure that we're healthy physically, emotionally, and mentally. And so getting through that stigma, getting past that stigma is the short term. The long term is just building the resiliency. I think everybody, if you haven't been injured on the job, you know somebody who has been, and what happens? We go to a doctor, we let it heal, we get back to being normal, and we get, if you break an arm, you put it in a cast, it sets, and then eventually the cast comes off. Well, mental health is kind of the same way. If you ignore it, it will just get worse. If you don't ignore it, if you address it, it can get better, and it will get better. And long term, that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that our officers and our staff are resilient, that they're able to make it to their 30 years and retire and live a good life after that. And I mean, that's a big thing as well. A lot of police officers have short life expectancies compared to the general population because of all of this. So it's not even just making it to retirement, it's living a good life after retirement as well. And that's our long-term goal.
John, any final thoughts as we wrap this up?
I think they both said it great. The only last thing I would say is, if you have a healthy police officer, you have a healthy service. And if we're healthy, we can provide a healthy service to those that we serve. And I think that's just as important as it is within our internal walls of each police department.
John, Britni, Brandon, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for your involvement in this effort. Again, more information here about the West Metro Peer Support Team. Thanks for joining us.